can't even fathom what that would look like. Nonetheless, you're going to be fighting Avengers type out here when this breaks. So today we are covering the state of robotics in 2026. A lot is taking place and robotics is a new frontier. So let's cover kind of the most recent news, which is the Robot Olympics, and cover everything in between so that you are up to date with everything robotics in the next few minutes. Alright, so this is the second year of the World Humanoid Robot Games in Beijing, and this definitely shows where things are headed and where we currently are. They are smashing human records in 100-meter sprint and high jump at Beijing Robot Games. I don't know what else to say, but it's getting very, very crazy, and we're going to cover some of this footage, what it really looks like. But Chinese humanoid robots broke records set by humans, including Usain Bolt's 100-meter sprint world record. I don't know if you recall watching that. Okay, so very interesting, and more than 2,000 humanoid robots were participating in this event. Okay, so demonstrating China's rapid progress in advanced robotics as a technology race with the US heats up. This is obviously a big talking point. Now we're going to see people are saying robots obviously are the future, right? We have Elon basically saying that it's going to be a very high ratio between robots and humans, where there's just going to be trillions of robots, okay? And we can already kind of see that depending what industry you're in. But look at these robots, okay? They don't look much different from us. Yes, obviously there is some specialization taking place. We have ping pong. Now I love ping pong, and soon enough we're going to have a robot beat me in ping pong. In the future here, my friends, in the future, not too far out, probably, I don't know, maybe 2 decades, 3 decades. And we'll talk about kind of the progression of robotics, right? Some people think, especially with AI now, some people think it's a lot sooner. Some people think it's a lot further away. Nonetheless, you're going to have humans. You think the UFC is cool? You're going to have humans versus robots fight each other. Essentially, it's going to be to the death because society is cooked at that point. But look at this, right? You have a nice little kick to the torso here. My goodness. It's going to have better dexterity, better balance. It's going to know where to hit you, when to hit you. Let's continue onward. So this, again, is happening right now. Look how high this thing is jumping. Now, more importantly, can they make money, right? So obviously, we're going to have tons of robots everywhere. Does this actually produce any monetary value? Now, there obviously is a tremendous amount of excitement, right? This kind of reminds me of the early days of Tesla, when Tesla was kind of just coming off, and we'll talk about kind of the incidents we are seeing with robots because they're not perfect yet, and you kind of had that in the early days of Tesla, right? We had some major issues with Teslas that were just kind of breaking news, and it kind of reminds me of the early Tesla days, the early Waymo days, where there's a lot of excitement around self-driving cars. Now you're kind of seeing that same excitement with robots, okay? So there is a major startup, Unitree Robotics, kind of the one kind of pioneering a lot of this, especially in China, and they basically raised $900 million, okay, at about $9 billion. Okay. Now, this is interesting coming from the company themselves. Unitree said the progress for large-scale commercial adoption may be slower than expected, as are still not precise or durable enough. Now, we do know with Elon, his main thing is it's the hands. I don't know what it has to do with the hands in general, but you have to realize we are trying to essentially clone a design that has been around for millions of years, right? And a lot of us take the human form for granted, okay? Over millions of years, we have survived many different things, okay? And the way we go about our design, okay, not even take the brain out of the equation, just the design. We can walk, we're durable, we're flexible. Like, again, this has been perfected over millions and millions of years. And so when it comes to the hands are something very, very special and difficult to replicate what the hands can do, right? Very unique mechanisms that we hold. Again, we take for granted. We just don't know how supreme they are. Now, robots have to be specifically trained for each and every task entrusted to them, even the simplest task, right? So, for instance, like folding clothing. I believe we have the figure for robot. It's good at kind of folding clothing and potentially doing dishes. Again, they have to be treated. It's a weird dynamic that they have to face, right? So they have to be specialized. They have to be general enough where they can do pretty much any task around the house, but they also have to be specifically trained for each of the tasks, right? And it's kind of like the AI models now, where they're all kind of a generalist, and then they do obviously have a bit of that depth. But you do see kind of, you can obviously poke holes with the current LLMs, and you're going to be able to do that with these robots. So it's an interesting task that a lot of these companies are faced. When it comes to kind of building an appropriate robot that isn't just a generalist. I do believe we'll have generalist kind of robots like we will with LLMs, and then we'll have highly, highly specialized robots as well when it comes to specific tasks. When it comes to the economics of things, because this is obviously a big question, should you go about getting one? Should you go about getting one in maybe 10 years? I definitely want one myself. I think you can probably buy them for, I think, 20 to 50,000. Which is kind of just your generalist robot that goes around the house. Nonetheless, lower cost manufacturing has helped China pull ahead of global rivals in robotics. Wood Mackenzie expects the global humanoid robot fleet to grow more than 90% annually through 2035 to surpass 10 million units. And again, 10 million units is hardly anything. Again, Elon is saying, you'll have like a 10-to-1 ratio between robots and humans, okay, which is absolutely insane. But pretty much everywhere you look, there will be a robot. Annual shipments are projected to top 4 million by then. China is already the dominant player, accounting for more than 70% of the global industrial robot installations and nearly 90% of all humanoids deployed last year. Now, the average humanoid robot prices have plunged 93%. That is with all intelligence in general. As things get cheaper, again, that's why there's going to be like a 5-to-1 ratio, a 10-to-1 ratio, because it's going to be so cheap just to manufacture these, because when robots are making robots, you can make them all day. Okay, 24/7 around the clock. Between 2020 and 2025 to 58,000, according to Wood Mackenzie. Now, the firm projects that Unitree's $16,000 flagship G1 model costs just $80 in electricity to run for 8 hours a day. But says wider adoption could add pressure to electricity systems already stretched by AI data centers. Now, we obviously do know that U.S. has a massive grid issue. It's something we haven't really focused on, which does cause a bit of concern when it does come to the AI side of things. And obviously, if we have robots going everywhere, that is, yes, that does put strain on the grid. There are some for just like households. I don't know how expensive those are, but nonetheless, we can see here that there is as we can see here, Chinese humanoid makers lead the pack. Okay, so as you can see, it's pretty much just all Chinese companies right now. All right. Obviously, we have to include drones, okay? Drones is a big thing, kind of consumers and Amazon and doing their stuff, but obviously with war, we'll cover that in a sec here. But Amazon to expand drone service to nearly 500 cities after targeting 1 million deliveries this year. And there is a video of an Amazon drone dropping the package in a pool. There are, again, it's not perfect. It's the early days of Tesla and Waymo, but they are getting better and better. So drones are obviously the future. It's going to make things a lot easier. You don't need roads. You don't need kind of this highway, but there is you do have a lot of laws when it comes to space and where these drones are going. Okay, but nonetheless, they said Wednesday, okay, which I believe was 1 to 2 weeks ago, to offer drone deliveries in nearly 500 U.S. cities and towns by the end of the year. All right, this is this year. A sign of momentum for a project that's been slow to develop since founder Jeff Bezos first laid out its vision. All right, his vision for the service almost 13 years ago. You have to realize with things like these take time. Okay, and the cool thing is seeing Jeff Bezos had this vision. Okay, and you have to realize with these visionaries, with these top tier companies that just don't go away very easily, they had the vision when no one else was thinking about it, right? First comes to mind is Sam Altman with OpenAI. They started back in 2015, and no one heard about them until about 2022 to 2023. Okay, so it takes a while for this thing to take off. It takes a lot of planning. Nonetheless, we are seeing it now take place. And I think it's going to be super cool to have a drone literally drop off your parcel or box or whatever you ordered. We'll talk about how that works. I think that's going to be super cool, and you're going to get it 10 times faster. So the planned expansion for Prime Air, I think that's so cool. It sounds very cool. Prime Air would represent a 6-fold increase from its current footprint. The company said in a blog, right? So again, they're leveraging a lot of their resources on this bet. Amazon's latest update confirms 5 months after David Carbone, vice president of Prime Air, spoke confidently about the program and laid out ambitious growth plans in an internal all-hands meeting. Projected at the time that Prime Air will make 1 million deliveries this year, and said Amazon has the highest demand drone delivery service in the industry. As we know, Amazon is a logistics company. They're a data and logistics company, okay? They're not an e-com company. They are a logistics company. They have one of the best logistics systems in the entire world, and now they are utilizing all that data. Since 2024, received a critical green light from regulators to conduct long-range drone deliveries. Again, the regulations around kind of air, like space, is like novel, because there just hasn't been a ton of stuff going on with kind of within kind of that like height range. And when it comes to kind of the space, like outer space, obviously there's a ton of regulations there. We all kind of know of before, but the rules and regulations that kind of dictate how these drones fly and what kind of height they're flying at, it's a whole new ball game. Okay, again, we haven't really heard of these things before. They're being kind of made up on the spot, and there's kind of just weird rules in general, okay, that these kind of companies are fighting against. Nonetheless, it has expanded beyond initial markets near Dallas and Phoenix to 11 metro areas with 6 other locations. Again, this reminds me of the Waymo days. I stepped into Waymo, I think, the first time last year in Atlanta, Georgia, because that was one of the few states that only allowed this type of technology in, right? So you have to, again, get, as a company, you have to get the data, and you have to get the amount of traffic to then look at the data and then give it to the other models so that they can probably start testing around this information. Okay, so again, Atlanta, Georgia, it was freaking amazing to be able to step into a self-driving car, basically just on your phone, put in the location, it's going to pick you up, it's going to drop you off, it's going to do everything for you. It was freaking amazing. It was so cool to see that. And again, we are having the expansion now. I think Waymo's now we're starting to expand into other states because it's getting pretty good. And that's what's happening now with drones. Amazon's drones are capable of delivering packages that are up to 5 pounds and within 7.5-mile radius of its facilities. Now, interesting, I don't know the ratio of how many packages are being delivered. You'd obviously have to do some formula there to identify how many packages are actually 5 or sub 5 pounds. Okay, and within a 7.5-mile radius of its facilities. Again, Amazon is a logistics company. Put a bunch of hubs everywhere in big locations so that you can provide quick, instant access. That you don't have to wait days anymore. You can just wait maybe hours. Okay, so obviously they're gonna have to do the same thing here. But again, 5 pounds. I don't know what the average parcel is from Amazon. That'd be interesting to find out. Again, there's a lot of things here. Like imagine these drones getting hacked. Imagine that someone put an explosive in a hacked drone. That's probably a little far-fetched, maybe not. But imagine just kind of, this whole thing just turning off, right? So you would have like 100 drones in the air and it just kind of turning off. What happens when you have a snowstorm, right? Obviously, you probably have to shut that down, right? There's obviously so many questions. This is kind of like the days of Uber. There's so many things. Uber, again, is another phenomenal company. I love researching. But Uber has had its issues, right? Just working with the grid, working, with all this type of stuff, okay? Again, a lot of questions when it comes to this autonomous type of technology. When it comes to how this looks, when it comes to war, obviously there's a lot of companies now diving deep into this technology for war. War will not be human to human. It's going to be human to drone, human to robot, or just robot to robot, right? So nonetheless, but we have Trump administration spending plan for the next year allocates more than $70 billion for military drones and counter drone weapon systems. There's a lot of money going into this type of things because they see it. They see where things are headed, okay? So drone warfare is rapidly reshaping the modern battlefield, and this budget is the largest investment in drone warfare and counter drone technology in U.S. history, Hearst said. Okay, so again, it's changing very, very quickly. So over the last decade, unmanned platforms have emerged as game-changing weapons in modern combat and urgent and enduring threats to the U.S. military personnel. Again, things are going to get very weird very quickly here. The company that seems to be doing all right now, NVIDIA, is also hedging their bets on this type of industry. We have Jensen Huang. He says physical AI has arrived. Every industrial company will become a robotics company. Very interesting. Okay, and NVIDIA's full-stack platform spanning computing, open models, and software frameworks is the foundation for the robotics industry, uniting a worldwide ecosystem. Now, it is interesting to note you're eventually going to have a Fable-like intelligence in a robot. So right now, obviously, the LLMs are kind of just in the digital realm. Soon, you're going to have the physical realm with robots, and then soon you're going to have that converge, and then we're really cooked, okay, as the kids say. So, robotics is evolving from task-specific machines to adaptable generalist specialist systems that maintain the precision and reliability required for industrial-grade deployment. So again, you're going to have that convergence of, Fable whatever version with the best technology out there. You're going to have like a freaking Thor you're fighting against, okay? You're going to have like Iron Man you're fighting against with the newest LLM that just got released, and it's going to be of Mythos to the power of 10 type intelligence, okay? To the power of 100 type intelligence. Can't even fathom what that would look like. Nonetheless, you're going to be fighting Avengers type motherfuckers out here when this shit breaks. All right? When they crack the code on this, because hardware has not been cracked yet, when they crack it, it's going to be very interesting. Leading developers such as Field AI and Skill AI are building generalized robot brains using NVIDIA's Cosmos world models for data generation and Isaac simulation frameworks to validate policies in simulation, enabling any robot to master new tasks with minimal retraining. I used to watch a show. It was called Chuck, one of my favorite shows growing up as a kid. And essentially, he would put on these like glasses, and it was called The Intersect, and it would basically just download a bunch of information, and you'd like, after basically being programmed, for like the day or whatever, you could take these things off, and then you would like know Kung Fu, right? You'd know how to speak multiple languages. It was basically just skillifying anything in the world and basically programming it into the brain so that you could know it and then you'd go about doing it. I think there is a world where that takes place. I don't know how you would go about doing that. Nonetheless, the robots are obviously going to be able to do that. You'll plug your robot in for probably 2 hours. It's going to get an update. The update will be, it now can speak in every language. It now can pretty much be an expert in anything. It's going to be absolutely crazy. And that robot brain that they're building right now is probably going to become that. Okay. Now, again, that's a little further down the line, but you can kind of see where these things are going. NVIDIA today announced Cosmos 3, the first world foundation model unifying synthetic world generation, vision, reasoning, and action simulation. The vision reasoning is a key component as well to accelerate the development of generalized robot intelligence for complex environments. Again, complex environments. When it comes to walking up like a dirt road, when it comes to a hilly environment, These robots do not have kind of, again, you are trying to make a design that has been here for millions of years. It's second nature for us when it comes to walking. You pick it up quite quickly in the, first few years of your life. But robots are just not great at that, right? They don't have that mobility. They don't have that understanding of what they're walking on, all right? But they're going to basically solve that here shortly. So powering the next generation. Now, building humanoid robots is one of robotics' greatest challenges. Replicating human mobility, dexterity, and reasoning requires tightly integrating advanced AI. Okay, and you will get there. You'll get there very quickly, I think. Once you kind of crack the code, all you're going to do is just shove a bunch of data into the robot, and then the robot's going to know how to speak every language, and, it's going to be the greatest martial arts fighter ever, and it's going to be very interesting. Comment down below if I'm right or wrong.